What is going on, guys? Hope you're all doing very well. In this video, you will get a beginner's guide for Curse of the Dead Gods. So here I will talk about the basic mechanics and give you some general tips and tricks to use these mechanics when starting the game. So if that sounds interesting, let's get into it. A little info about the setup of the game. Curse of the Dead Gods is a top-down roguelike, and you are stuck in some haunted temple where your only way out is to turn the gigantic spinning wheel right in front of you to take your chances on the temples. And if you die exploring the temple, you go straight back to the start. So yeah, you're pretty fucked. So let's start with explaining the spinning wheel, where you can choose between different explorations to enter one of the three temples. The first exploration will start with only one section to go through, facing different floors to get to the first champion of that temple. After you completed that one, you can go to the second exploration, where you run two sections and face the same champion in the first section and a new one in the second section. If you completed this one, you can now run the third exploration of the temple and face all three sections with the two champions, and at the end of the third section, you face the Dark Avatar boss of that temple. In the temple, you of course have means to defend yourself against the enemies you face with one-handed weapons, off-handed weapons, and two-handed weapons. For the one-handed weapons, you got swords, maces, claws, and throwing weapons. For the offhand weapons, you got pistols, shields, daggers, and whips. For the two-handed weapons, you got spears, bows, two-handed heavy weapons, including bombs. You will also carry a torch around to light up the areas within the temple what you want to do, because if you are in the darkness, you will take 50% more damage, so you want to light things up. And you can see the indicator down the bottom to see if you're standing in the light or the darkness. Some weapons will also interrupt the enemy's regular attacks to stun them for a bit. These are charged attacks from the shields, whips, offhanded combos of the pistol. This is when you attack with your one-handed weapon, and during the combo, you change attacking with your offhand weapon, and it will do a special offhand combo attack. Finishers of daggers and spears will also interrupt enemies, and any attack of the two-handed heavy weapons will interrupt enemies. You will have a stamina point system in the game. You got 5 points standard. Each action will cost 1 point, so this means attacking with your weapons. Same goes for charge attacks, but regular attacks from the one-handed weapon won't cost any stamina, only the finisher, and dodging will cost 1 point as well. These stamina points will come back over time when you're not using any actions, but killing an enemy will instantly replenish a point. Same goes for if you do a perfect dodge. This is when you dodge just before the attack is about to hit. What is pretty easy in this game, by the way. And if you parry attacks, this will replenish 2 points. Also, if you parry attacks from enemies, they will be stunned and get a weakening effect that will increase the damage taken by 50% for a short time. Also, when you are parrying with a shield, the parry window is slightly increased, making parrying a lot easier. When facing the temple, you will explore different types of floors to get to the ending. The floors you encounter can be weapon floors. Here you will have to fight 3 waves of enemies to claim one of the 3 weapons randomly selected from the loot pool. The first weapon you can select will only have 1 random affix on it, the second 2 affixes, and the third will have 3. Or you also have a chance to get a cursed weapon. All weapons will have 1 fixed affix on them, making them all unique, and this is also unique to make builds in the game during the runs. To get these weapons from the altar, you can use gold found during the run or make a blood offering that will increase your corruption. Talking about corruption is that when you hit 100 corruption, you will be cursed when entering the next floor and gain a debuff, what can also act sort of as a buff depending on which curse you get. You can get up to 4 random curses, but the 5th one will always deplete your health slowly to 1 health, what should be avoided. This is why you need to think before going for blood offerings that you won't be getting too many curses. Weapon altars aren't the only way for getting weapons. You can also find them dropped from enemies, bosses, and chests during the run. The upgrade floors will work the same as the weapon floors, only at the altar you can increase the level from the weapons you already got instead. This is great later in the runs to make your weapons you like to use stronger. Relic floors will let you go through a small level where you need to go through different rooms where you need to defeat enemies. And at the end, you will find an altar with a choice between 3 relics. The first one will have lesser passive bonuses. The second is better, and the last one has the best bonuses. And you can also have a chance to get a cursed relic, what will most likely be a really good bonus, what you want to get. You can also find relics dropped from enemies, bosses, and chests. And if you do find an item dropped and you don't need it, you can also offer it to the gods to gain passive bonuses, gold, reduced corruption, and health. The gold and attributes floors work the same. You need to go through a small level, but with gold floors, you will find more gold on this floor than any other floor. And for the attributes floor, you will find an altar at the end where you can choose to increase 2 of the 3 attributes in the game. These are perception, dexterity, and constitution. Perception will increase the gold you find from all sources and also the drop chance from items from enemies. So this means relics and weapons. Every 20 points of perception will increase the drop chance even more. And dexterity will increase your overall damage output, and constitution will increase your maximum health. For the healing floors, you can heal yourself up, but will get corrupted every time you heal. So you have to keep in mind that you won't gain too much corruption, because then you will be cursed. The challenge floors will set you up in one big room with a challenge where you need to defeat the enemies before the timer runs out to get gold. The faster you are, the more gold you can get. On the vault floors, you will also enter a big room and you need to defeat all the enemies without getting hit to get items from the chest. If you succeed, you will gain up to 3 items, but if you don't succeed, you will get nothing.
Mamma mia!
During the floors, you can also encounter secret pathways to find more gold and chests. Some pathways can be blocked by a breakable wall. Some enemies in the room can break these walls for you, so keep an eye out in the room if there is a breakable wall before you kill all the enemies in the room, because they can break it for you. You can also break them yourself with a 2-handed heavy weapon. This will include also bombs. There are also traps in the temple you need to be aware of, and some can be seen in the darkness, so you need to be holding the torch to reveal the traps. So I recommend, if you are not facing any rooms during the floors, you keep your torch in hand to light things up. You can also encounter unknown floors where you will get a random floor from the ones I just mentioned. At the end of each section in the runs, you will face a boss. Defeat this boss will cleanse one of the curses you have on you, and you can proceed to the next section. Although, if it is not the final boss, because if you kill him, then the exploration is completed. In the game, you will encounter status effects. This can make the playing field a little bit interesting. You got fire damage. This will set enemies on fire, lighting them up, and will take damage over time. Poison damage will add an extra of 50% damage over time from the damage of your weapon. Lightning damage will shock enemies, and if you hit enemies with a lightning weapon finisher, then all shocked enemies around you will take a lightning strike, setting them also on fire. You also got dark damage. This is done by cursed weapons that will weaken enemies that are lit up on fire, add additional poison damage to poison targets, and will create a lightning strike if you hit a shocked enemy with it. Enemies can also deal dark damage to you, and if they hit you, it will inflict extra corruption. The enemies you face in the game are mostly presented to you in groups. The different types of enemies you face are dictated of which temple you explore. The trick is when facing these groups of enemies is that they will only attack you one at a time, so you can wait for the attack, avoid it, and then do a combo until the other enemies attack you, and do the same until they are dead. To be good at this, you need to know the different types of enemies' attack patterns and which attacks they do, so you know how to dodge them or parry them. Also, a real good tip is to use the traps in the temples to take down your enemies. This can be a lot easier to take down multiple enemies because traps can one-shot enemies, but be careful not to take damage from the traps yourself because they can do a lot of damage to you as well. Every time you kill an enemy, you will gain a greed kill counter. This will increase the gold reward after defeating enemies. This greed counter will increase for every enemy beaten in a quick succession. If you hit enemies, do a perfect dodge, and do parries, the counter is reset. The bosses in the game will be a bit different. Their attacks can't be interrupted, so it is key to learn the boss's attack patterns, and some attacks can't be parried. So learning which ones you can't and can parry is very helpful, because if you do parry the boss, they will get the weakening effect. And for some attacks from the boss, you can parry them, but then he won't be stunned. So it is better to dodge those attacks and parry the attacks what does make him stun. Bosses can also drop a unique cursed weapon if you do a specific thing before you kill them, but I will make a guide on that so you know how to get them all. After you defeat a boss, you will gain skulls and jade rings to unlock blessings to gain extra passive bonuses from the start, unlock new weapons with the rings. Also, skulls can be used to unlock altars for getting better starting equipment, and divine favors to reroll altars and floors to get a new set of equipment to choose from. Skulls can also sometimes randomly be dropped from enemies during your run. If you have done all the different temple normal explorations, you can do the last exploration. Here you will face the absolute final boss in the game, and you will need to go through 3 sections of all the last sections of each temple. You will be needing to beat the 3 final bosses of each temple to face the final boss. If you have done this, you can do the harder explorations. Here you will need to run the 3 temples on where enemies will be much stronger and traps will deal more damage. If you have completed these temples, you can do the harder variation of the final normal exploration up to 3 more difficulties. You can also do events to run one of the 3 temples with a modifier on to make things harder to gain extra skulls. I do say though, skull farming is done much faster in the final exploration, where you can also defeat optional champions in the run that will also drop skulls. So do that instead. So that sums up the basic mechanics of the game. Now I will give you some tips and tricks you can implement to make the runs easier at the start. When you are spinning the big wheel and looking for an exploration, you want to go for explorations that give a weapon altar at the start, because then you can offer blood to get the 3rd weapon roll at the start to make things easier early on. If you didn't get any weapon floors on the first floor, then you can start the exploration, go to the main hall again, and you can load up the exploration again and keep doing this until you get the weapon floor. After that, you want to focus on getting better attributes because the quality stays the same at the start. What I mean by this, you will get better weapons and relic drops the further you go in the run, but the attributes bonuses stay the same, so get those first, and later you want to get better relics and weapons. Also at the start, build up gold and limit the blood offerings so you can still use them to get better weapons. Upgrade the level of your current weapon if you have weapons you like, and relics later in the run so you can get stronger. And if you limit the blood offerings, you won't get cursed too much because getting to the final curse is a no-go and it is pretty hard. There are 3 blessings at the start I like to use the most. These are clever kills. This will let traps deal 100% more damage to enemies. Tomahawk's protection. This will let fire light up further, and you will take 20% reduced damage in the light. Gust of agility. This will give you 5 dexterity at the start of the run, and perfect dodges will increase your movement speed for 5 seconds. With these, you can easily one-shot enemies with traps, making things very easy in rooms. And the fire damage reduction is pretty good to not die. And the extra damage is good in the early start in your run with the haste to position yourself better in fights. If you can, prioritize challenge rooms and vault rooms because you can get a lot of gold from challenge rooms and good items from vault rooms. This is also a good reason to have the blessings trap increase more damage because you can clear those rooms much easier if it got traps in them, to quickly one-shot enemies without getting hit. With your choice of weapons, I recommend you get at least a weapon that can interrupt enemies because you can stun lock them until they die, what is pretty useful. Also, when facing enemies, don't be greedy, wait for them to attack, avoid it, and then do your attack combos. If you unlock multiple weapons you don't want to use, you can also lock them so you won't get them in the loot pool anymore. So if you want to go for a specific build with weapons, it is much easier to get it by locking all the other weapons out, but you will still have some general starting weapons what can be locked out, so keep that in mind. Other than that, those were the tips that should help you out when starting with Curse of the Dead Gods, but I'm wrapping things up here. I will be making more guides for this game. These guides are going to be around how to complete the harder explorations, so if you are interested in those, go check them out. If you do enjoy this video and found it helpful, leave a like to support the video, comment down below if you got some questions, and subscribe for more gaming content. I thank you guys for watching and for all the support. Now guys, go get 'em.